Today's episode is the third in our Preptober series. If you don't know, Preptober is the writer name for October, where we writers prep our novels for November, aka NaNoWRIMO. In today's episode, we are going to be laying the basics out for outlining your novel. I'm going to go over a super basic way to outline your novel at the end, but first I want to talk about why you may choose to outline or why you may choose to not outline your novel, and go over two of my favorite outlining processes: Save the Cat Writes a Novel and the 3-act story structure. So let's get going. Let's start with why you may choose to outline your novel and why you may choose to not outline your novel. There really is no right or wrong way. Outlines do give you a roadmap to writing your novel, which can help unblock your writer's block, push you ahead when you feel like giving up, or even just keep you on the right track with multiple plot points and twists, which is ideal for thrillers and mysteries. Here are a few reasons you might choose to outline your novel. 1. You need a better understanding of what is going to happen when. Mostly this is a reason when writing timeline-driven novels such as The Time Traveler's Wife and all the Harry Potter books. 2. You need to stay on track because there will be a sequel. This would be used when the first book flows heavily into the second book and then into the third, and so on, such as Cassandra Clare's Mortal Instruments books. 3. You need organized ideas before you feel like you can do it. This is helpful for perfectionists. Speaking as a huge perfectionist myself, I have to feel like my work is at least somewhat good as I'm writing, so it helps me to have an outline that I've refined into a better outline, which then gets made into a novel. This is also good when you have a very plot twisty kind of book, such as One of Us is Lying. The 4th reason is you need to keep track of small details that affect the characters or plot greatly. Some books have the smallest details that affect the entire plot and the outcome, kind of like the butterfly effect. If that one small thing didn't happen, then neither would the book's outcome. Those kinds of things can be very difficult to keep track of, and an outline helps with that. A good example of this is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Each tiny detail is so important in this book that I'm sure she had an outline. Now, all of these are really good reasons for wanting to outline your book, but if you don't want to outline your book, here are a few reasons. You just don't want to. You aren't a planner, you don't want to take the time to do it, and you don't feel nearly as creative when planning each little thing out, and you feel that your writing feels stiff once you have done that. That's okay. You don't have to outline your book. Like I said, there's no right or wrong way to write a book. It's all in personal preference and what feels right to you. Another reason is your book just doesn't involve a lot of plot twists or butterfly effect details and doesn't rely on timeline beats. In this case, a synopsis might do you just as well. It's not to say that you can't create an outline. Of course you can. It's just that it's cool if you don't want to. Now, with the reasons we may or may not outline out of the way, let's dive into two of the possibly most talked about outlining processes for novels: Save the Cat Writes a Novel and the 3-act story structure. Save the Cat is relatively new. It gives the writer certain beats to hit at certain times. These are things like Themes Stated, Break Into Two, Fun and Games, and Dark Night of the Soul. This method is great for someone who wants to outline but doesn't want to follow a strict method. Save the Cat Writes a Novel is flexible and allows the writer to choose how much time or space each beat needs to take up, and sometimes even what beats are included or discluded. There are recommendations as to what point in your novel these beats need to be hit, but it does feel a lot more flexible than the 3-act story structure. Speaking of, the 3-act story structure is more structured, but great for writers that enjoy that kind of structure, organization, and a clear-cut way to get things done. This method focuses on certain beats being hit at certain times. It requires that each beat make the next inevitable. It is a more definitive process that puts the writer on autopilot as much as possible once the outlining process is done. I have written an entire blog post over at my website, NANOWRIMO.com, on outlining, with resources to both of those outlining processes linked there, so be sure to go check that out. Now, I want to share with you how I outline my novels. It is a very simple outline that keeps me sane and organized and doesn't take too long to do. I can spend anywhere from 1 week to a couple months on an outline. It really depends on how into the outlining process I am or what I'm writing. For instance, my thriller took way more time to outline than my contemporary romance did. So first things first, I start with a few pages on my characters, setting, plot, theme, and other story necessities. You can find all of these elements in my novel writing Bible, which is also linked on my blog, NANOWRIMO.com. Once I have all of those elements figured out, I can begin outlining. I outline based on these Save the Cat beats, even though I don't strictly follow the method. The first beat is opening image. For this, I write out what my opening image is. Usually it's bullet points. Then I move on to the next beat. I don't try yet to figure out pacing or really anything. I write the first thing that comes to mind and I go with what feels good. Once I work my way through all of the beats and have the general story outlined in front of me, then I read it all again. On my read through, I work on pacing, moving things around so that I can make my word count goal, and I usually splash in more background information. And if any dialogue or descriptions come to me, then I add them into the outline. I work my way through the outline just like this until I'm done. This is also the phase that I do any last-minute research and come up with good, solid names for all of my characters as well, because I like to know them before I start writing. This episode has been an overview of outlining and is by no means an in-depth dive into outlining. As I mentioned earlier, I do have a blog post written over at NANOWRIMO.com on outlining that you should be sure to check out. I also have some free printables to help you with your outline, and of course the Novel Planning Bible is available for $5 on my website. So thanks for listening, and I will meet you right back here next week for Preptober week 4.